Hey you, welcome to Almost 20. Guys, I am really trying my best to ensure that this podcast is having the best audio quality it can ever have and there is no noise interference whatsoever. But I am begging you, okay, this is like a warning, the disclaimer, any noise you hear at the background, it's not mine, okay? It's the neighbor's dog from compounds away that this microphone, this wonderful, powerful microphone decided that it wants to pick up every single noise. Okay, so if you hear any noise at the background, just know that it's not my fault. Okay, there's literally nothing I can do about this. I have been waiting and waiting, and this dog for some reason probably wants some morning food or something. Anyway, welcome to almost 20. Almost 20 took a break during the last week of December. That's why there was no episode that was posted. But we are back this year and we are back with more episodes. I just wanted to let you guys know that we'll be having guests soon on the podcast. And just get ready for more interesting topics with diverse perspectives. It's going to be amazing. So just sit back and tune in, just stay tuned and see what almost 20 is going to bring for you. Anyway, so I wanted to do something in this episode. I haven't really done it before, and I decided, you know what, enough is enough. Time has come. Let me just give the shout outs to my wonderful listeners. I checked my stats and I was delighted, honestly, and I was feeling really appreciative because without you guys listening, there is no almost 20. Okay. I know it sounds really generic. It sounds like, yeah, without you, there's no me. But literally, without you guys, there's no almost 20. So I wanted to give a shout out to you guys. Okay. We have 5 countries listening to almost 20, and it's really amazing. We have countries, especially in Nigeria. The hotspot is Nigeria. That's where I am. And, majority of my listeners are Nigerian listeners. So I see you guys. We have listeners from Germany. We have listeners from United Kingdom. We have listeners from United States. We have listeners from Sweden. And if we go specifically into these countries, their states, that's as much as the stats will let me see. We have listeners from Port Harcourt, River State. Shout out to you guys. We have listeners from there. We have listeners from Lagos, Lagos State, Nigeria. Shout out to you guys. I see you. We have listeners from Castina State. Shout out to you guys listening from Castina State. We have listeners from North Carolina, Forest City. We have listeners from Norbotin County. We have listeners from Castleford, Wakefield. We have listeners from Bavaria. We have listeners from Akwanga. I don't know if I got this pronunciation, but I think it's Akwanga, Nasarawa State. I see you guys. Shout out to you guys. And lastly, we have listeners from Nottingham. Honestly, guys, I am appreciative of you listening. Your listenership means a lot to this podcast and to me especially. Like I said earlier, without you guys listening, there literally is no almost 20. So shout out to you guys for listening. I really appreciate you all. You guys have made this journey together worth it. So just sit back and relax and let's be on this journey together. So thank you for listening, guys. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I believe everyone is smart, no matter what they've been told. Okay. Maybe being book smart or maybe memorizing what you've been taught in school so as to pass your examinations may not be your strength, or as people who speak and learn English very well would call it may not be your forte. Although that does not mean that you cannot work on that, right? But you could be good at fixing things. That's putting things together that are spoiled. Heck, I even know people who have something they call native intelligence. Now, native intelligence means that a person has the ability to analyze, to understand, and to solve a problem without any formal education or training. I know some people who, when they see something spoiled, right, they instantly have this understanding of how to fix it. Something spoiled like this, or there's a problem, and they're like, if we put this here, if we put this here, this will do like this. Okay, don't put this to here. This might have an issue. Put it like this, put it like this. This would work. And you will see it will work. And they might even do that thing perfect or even better than somebody who has a formal education or training, or even has much more, would I say, an intellectual knowledge more than this person. But this person who has no knowledge, no training whatsoever would see a problem, would see something spoilt, and they will just come and fix the thing. They'll be like, don't put it here, don't put this here. These two might shock each other. You know, it might shock somebody. Don't put it like this, put this one like this. You see, they have this intuitive knowledge, this intuitive feeling, this intuitive belief that this is what will happen, this is what will happen, and it will happen like that. The problem will be fixed. That's what they call native intelligence. You know, some people can excel in one category and in one skill, while another person would excel in another category or in another skill. Okay, and I just thought I would let this all out before we talk on today's topic. All of this goes to show that everybody is smart in whichever way they are smart in. Whether you are native intelligence smart, whether you are academically smart, whether you are creatively smart, everybody is smart in their own way. Okay, and today's topic is going to be the academic comeback, and I will particularly be talking on academic smartness. Okay, so if you were like me, you would definitely relate to what I'm about to tell you, okay? This is a story about my academic self a couple of years ago. And why I say a couple of years ago is to show you that there's a stark difference, a heavy contrast between that Martins of some years ago and that Martins of this current time that's speaking to you through this podcast, okay? So, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't consider myself the most academically smart person in the room, especially in the classroom, okay? If they were to call out people to do quiz, I was definitely not going to be among the top 5 people or top 6 people or you get the picture. I hope you get the picture, right? I was among those people that were average, a little bit above average, a little bit below average. I was no bimbo, okay? I was not a stupid person. I was not some sort of bimbo that was like carrying the entire class on my head, okay? And even if someone is struggling like that and you're listening to this podcast, I'm not throwing shade on you. You understand? I'm just trying to say that I wasn't the most um stupidest person or the least academically smart person in the class. But again, I wasn't really that academically sound that I was competing with other top academic scholars in class. You understand? And this thing has a way of maybe not directly messing with your confidence, but you will at least just, it's as if you just subconsciously know your place in class, right? If they were to ask a question in class now, instead of you to raise your hand with so much confidence to answer the question, you would even look. I know that I used to look around the classroom to look whether anybody has answered that question. And God forbid I answer that question at when they raise it and I answer it immediately because I might be wrong. Okay, even if I have an idea or I think that answer might be correct. If the smartest person in that class is thinking about the answer, who am I to answer that question? You understand? There's a stark difference between that Martins of then and that Martins of now. And why I say there's a stark difference is because I did a couple of things to help me get to where I am today. And I'm not speaking on this topic, on this entire academic smartness as an authority or as an expert. I'm speaking on it as somebody who has a contribution to this topic, you understand? As somebody who has experienced it and as somebody who wants to let you know that there is a brighter light at the end of the tunnel in academics, especially in our society whereby if you're not academically smart, God forbid you are creatively smart, God forbid you have other talents that are not 10 over 10 in your academic paper. If it's nothing like that, then you are considered less than, a bit deformed, a bit, something is, you're not really that bright, but they would manage you. You understand? Those who are academically bright, they are seen as some sort of gods in the class. You basically understand what I'm trying to say, right? And there are a couple of things I did that helped me get to where I am today. And I would really love to share that with you. Okay. One thing I will let you know is that the first thing I did was become intentional. And this intentionality also spread to my handwriting. Okay. I had the worst handwriting in the history of mankind. And I'm not exaggerating, okay? I only say this because my teachers of that time, my primary school teachers, they used to tell me that my handwriting is like a dog fowl scratch. You know when chicken is scratching the ground and looking, there was no kind of insult my beloved handwriting did not receive. And so even though I thought my handwriting okay, I have always known from when I was small that my handwriting was nothing to write home about, okay? So what I did was the holiday before my SS1, right? I sat down one day and I thought to myself, Martins, you are literally going to become a senior student one day, and the juniors will be calling you senior. And I do not want to be that kind of senior that has a horrible handwriting. You get what I'm saying? This senior that has dog foul handwriting, this senior that has some sort of yeah handwriting. You understand what I'm trying to say? So I decided to sit down and I decided to work on my handwriting. What I did was to get a piece of paper and I started to write and be intentional about it. And I will not say that I was following some sort of manuscript or I went to YouTube and typed how to have a good handwriting. All I did was just to be intentional about writing properly. At first, I was writing slowly, I was ensuring the handwriting had a specific pattern, and now, today, I literally get compliments about my handwriting. I literally get compliments about Martins, your handwriting is fine, and I still feel somehow about it though. But you see what I'm saying? You worked, right? I received compliments about it, and that leads me to intentionality. I was intentional about that. The truth is that if you want to be smart, at least if you want to be regarded as somebody who is academically smart in this our society, it means that you have to be at least good in as many subjects as you can. You have to be academically sound. And for those of us who were not blessed with immediately seeing something in the board, learning it that day and remembering it throughout your entire lifetime, okay, I envy those people who put less than effort, less than anything effort in the academics, and they still come out with top grades. There's us, me and you, who is listening to this podcast, who have to literally sweat and work and revise and revise. The truth is that if you are not smart, okay, you cannot be smart unless you want to be smart. I know that's what I did. I had to tell myself that, listen, I have changed schools a couple of times. I have met a lot of individuals who are smart, and I can't remain the guy who's always just hanging by the thread, who's always at the corner. I need to literally do some things for myself. And I'm not doing it for anybody, I'm doing it for myself, you get? And I decided to be intentional about my reading. I decided to be intentional about revising. I decided to be intentional about paying attention in class. And there was a stark difference. It's not magic, you guys. It's definitely not magic. It worked out for me. The second thing I want to talk about was that I read the dictionary. I know what? Yes, I read the dictionary. I would say that now I consider myself, maybe other people regard me too, but I also consider myself as somebody who is quite eloquent in English and somebody who is very, very skillful and craftful with his English language. That's to say that I understand the basic semantics of English and I understand the meaning and definition of so many words. And the Martins of some couple of years ago would not even dream of this. And what helped me reach this was also intentionality and also reading the dictionary. I'll get to the reading dictionary part. Now, let me let you in on a story. When I was in my SS2, there was this classmate of mine who came to class, right? And she was pretty cool, right? But whenever it came to exams and tests, all of my classmates would start asking this girl for answers for English, answers for this one. And the girl was really good in English. Like she just came newly and she was this pinnacle of English. Everybody was always asking her for English answers, English, all those things. And I met her one day. We eventually became good friends. I met her one day and I was like, yo, how do you know so many English words? How do you know the meaning to many words? How do you understand this language so perfectly? It's so easy for you. And she was like, well, she reads the dictionary. And anytime she looks at a word and she doesn't understand that word, she goes to the dictionary. And guess what she does? She looks for that word. And I was blown away. Something like that is what you do and you're this good. Guess what I did? I went home that day and told my house that I needed a dictionary, right? And I got the dictionary and I started reading the dictionary. Now, don't overwhelm yourself when you're reading the dictionary by flipping through so many pages. What I will tell you that you can do is to open the dictionary, look for a particular word that catches your interest, you read it, you look at the definition, you look at the examples, you flip to another word. Just be going through the dictionary as if you're inspecting it. You understand? Continuously do this. I'm telling you, your brain will absorb it. Your brain that can remember the title of so many Z World films, your brain that can remember the theme songs of so many movies and series, your brain is definitely going to remember the words and definitions in the dictionary if you consistently do that. Another thing that I did that helped me in my English language was that whenever I was reading books, because I had always loved to read storybooks, but I then became intentional about reading and understanding the words I was reading. Before I would just read it for entertainment, and I still do. But the difference now was that whenever I read my English books, like any English text, any English storybooks, any English whatever, if I see any language or any word that seems confusing to me or I do not understand the meaning, guess what I am going to do? Your boy is going straight to the dictionary and I'm going to find out the meaning of that word, right? And I'm going to understand it. And trust me when I say these things, they sound like basic, simple steps, but they did work out for me, okay? And I'm not saying that magically all my grades turned to A and I was this straight A student, I was this scholar A scholarship. I wish it was like that. The thing is that I still get my A's in most of my subjects, and there are still subjects that I'm working on currently and I'm struggling with. But there is a big difference between where I was years ago and where I am now. And I'm sharing this with you for you to implement it in your life. Just do it and see the difference. Another thing I want to talk about is to know your reading style and how best you understand information. There are some people who say that they read better in the morning when the world is still quiet and when the world is still calm. That's the best time they absorb information. And then there are some other people who say that they read better in the night time when the world is going to bed and it's just them and their book, and that's the best time they're absorbing their information. Now, I've tried reading in the morning, I've tried reading in the night, and there is a factor that I've realized that would determine whether I understand and absorb information, and that is my willingness to understand what I'm reading. I have realized that no matter whether it's the morning or whether it's the evening, once I am willing to read, I would understand. It could even be in a hot afternoon. I find a shade. If I'm willing to say, all right, let me understand this thing, let me put so and so amount of time, I need to understand this work right now, I would understand it. And you might be like that too. You might be somebody who just needs to willingly decide that they want to read something and understand it, and they will understand. Why there are some other people who like, yeah, they might understand it, but they understand best at so and so time. And everybody is different, right? So it's best to know your time that you read and play into that strength. I know that for me, it's just my willingness to read. And so what I do is whenever I need to read, I would set out a specific amount of time and I would look at myself, I'll be like, am I really willing to read this stuff? Because I do not want to waste my time. You understand? And so I would set out a particular time and I would be willing to understand whatever it is I am reading. And so, understanding your reading style is one of the best things that you could do for yourself because that would really facilitate and make your reading process much more smoother, much more understandable, much more easier. Some other people, they could say that, okay, they read better in the morning, but they also understand information, visual information, they understand through videos. Some people prefer graphical information, some people prefer audio. I know I did some things in my year one. Tried a couple of reading styles, and the one that I used that helped me through my year one was reading my notes into my voice recorder and then listening to it through my earpiece on repeat. And it did help me, like it just made the easy reading process much more easier for me. It did help me. You might be another person that prefers to write down your notes again, and as you're writing down the notes, as you're jotting it down, you are understanding. What I'm trying to say is that there are so many diverse reading styles, and you should find the one that works for you. If you can find that reading style, that reading pattern, that reading time that works for you, your process of absorbing and learning information will be so much effective because you're playing into your strength. You know what works for you, and you would definitely see a difference in your grade and in your academic status. One of the last things I want to talk about is to associate with people who have similar academic goals. Just like the saying goes, you are the summarization of five people you hang around with the most. You cannot be somebody who wants to improve in your academic performance and you are consistently hanging around people who do not give a flying F, who can't even care lesser about the academic grades, about the academic performance, about anything relating to academics, and you're hanging around those people, you call them your besties, and you're hanging around those kind of people and you want to improve in your academy, you're just deceiving yourself, honestly. One of the things I would say is that you should hang around people who are eager and who have the same drive to improve academically. Because even if you were to slack or you were to feel less motivated, they would have a way of motivating you, or you would even have this healthy competition. You see, there's this saying that goes iron sharpened iron, and it's a fact, it's a reality that if you're hanging around people like that, there's going to be motivation, there's going to be healthy competition, there's going to be this drive for succeeding because you're among people who are succeeding, you get. Another thing could be hanging around people who are academically smart in your specialization, in your classroom, in wherever it is. I used to believe that hanging around these smart people, okay, I'm saying all of these things like it's easy, okay, but I've come to meet a lot of smart people who are really good people. And these smart people are human beings like you and I, okay. I used to believe that smart people are some sort of arrogant gods, or not even arrogant, but they would not want to associate with somebody who literally doesn't bring anything to the table, or to be as though I'm using them, or to be as though I'm wasting their time or something like that. But I've come to realize that those smart people, if they are really good people, that's the truth, is that if they are really good people and they see that you're putting in the effort, they see that you want to work on yourself, they see that you're actually putting the effort, you're showing up, you're bettering yourself, trust me, you're going to fit in perfectly with them, because that's the same level they're on. And once they see that you're trying to achieve that level, you're trying to achieve, and you're not doing it to hit them or compete against them in an unfriendly or in a jealous way, you're actually wanting to be inspired by them, you're actually wanting to associate yourself with them to better yourself. If you start associating with them, you would see yourself bringing things to the table, because you will start thinking like them, you will start performing as good as them. So all of these things that your friend Martins here is just jabbering and talking about is that if you want to improve yourself academically, the people you hang around with matter the most, right? You should switch your circle of friends or people you're hanging around with if they are people who have zero academic drive or zero academic goals. Hanging around with these smart folks are good. If they are good people, you would fit in with them as long as you are continuously putting the work and you are showing that you are putting the work, you are making effort to become a better person. You should fit in along with them perfectly. Okay, so before we reach our final and usual conclusion that we have on this podcast, I just wanted to talk about smartness in all areas. And I wanted to let you know that academic smartness is not the only smartness that's there. And I still want to stand on the intro that I started with in this podcast. That is to say that everybody is smart in their own way. And as we wrap up this episode of this podcast here, I just want to remind you that's listening that academic smartness is not something that is fixed. It's something that you can work on. It's not some sort of fixed trait that if you have it, good for you. If you don't have it, sorry for you. You can't do anything about it. There are things that you can do, strategies that can help you grow in this academic smartness. Okay, it's something you can work on. But let me also say this: academic smartness is not the only form of intelligence that matters. Okay, there's native intelligence, there's creative smartness, and there are other unique strengths, and they are just as valuable. Okay, maybe you that's listening to me now, you are good at solving practical problems, you're good at thinking outside the box, or you're good at, heck, even creating something that's beautiful that inspires other people. The truth is that everybody is smart in their own way, and just because somebody excels academically, it does not mean that you are less valuable or you are less important. Your value is not defined by how well you fit into one category of intelligence. So while I'm urging you to improve on your academics, while urging you to improve, academically, don't overlook other areas where you shine, okay? Celebrate your unique abilities. Remember that the world needs all sorts of intelligence, all sorts of unique abilities. Imagine how the world would be if we didn't have musicians, if we didn't have artists. I feel like the world would be very monotonous if everybody was academically smart, if everybody was going through one particular sector, if everybody was doing the same thing. You understand? So I just thought I'd say this, okay? Academic smartness is not the only kind of smartness, and there are other creative strengths that are just as valuable. So whether you are academically smart or you are not, whether you want to improve on your academic smartness or whether you have other strengths that you're improving on, you are just as valuable, okay? And that brings us to our usual conclusions for the podcast. We normally have usual conclusions for each podcast episode. And today we have three conclusions for today's podcast episode. The first conclusion is that you should be intentional about being academically smart, okay? You cannot be smart if you do not want to be smart. Okay, you have to be intentional about being smart. The second thing is that if you want to improve in your English vocabularies, try to read enough English words and try to find out their meanings. Okay, the dictionary is your best friend. And the third conclusion is to hang around people who are also intentional about their academic goals, who want to better themselves and who wants to develop themselves in the academic side. Okay, hang around smart people, hang around intentional people, surround yourself with people who want to develop themselves and see the difference in your academic status. All right. And that's all I've got for today, folks. As always, it's always amazing to come and chill with you guys, to come and talk about amazing, relatable topics about self development and all things self. As always, thank you for listening. I appreciate you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow the podcast. Don't forget to click the notification icon beside the follow button if you're listening on Spotify so that you get a notification anytime a new episode drops. Don't forget to rate the podcast. Like I would always say, 5 stars or nothing. Don't forget to share the podcast as it helps to get the word out. So share the podcast to your friends, your colleagues, your classmates, your course-mates, anybody that you feel would need this podcast. Even if you feel they don't need it, who knows, they might need it. So just share it to them. Literally helps get the word out. So I would really appreciate if you help me share the podcast. Don't forget to check out the Almost 20 podcast on Instagram at Almost 20 podcast. The link is in the episode description below. Don't forget to follow me, your host, on Instagram at _Guy Martins. Once again, the link is in the episode description below. New episodes every Sunday. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll be having guests very soon. So stay tuned, guys. I would see you guys next Sunday.